In this video, we're going to be going over a basic introduction to HTML and CSS, so let's get started. And by the way, this is going to be in Replit and browser IDE that's available. So basically, HTML and CSS are used for web development, and HTML is the structure of the website, while CSS is customizing HTML code. So when you want to make a website, and the web page is right here for the HTML, just a sample thing to test code and stuff. You want to first learn HTML, and CSS will come alongside that. So you can't. I suggest you learn side by side, because if you just learn HTML, your website's not going to be that great. So you need the CSS there. CSS is extremely important. So let's just dive right into it. So starting with HTML, there's multiple tags that HTML is written in. So let's start with the basic tag. We have the H1 tag, and the H1 tag is for headers. So I have the H1 tag here for the header, and this is the largest header available on the website, so it'll display a header. So if I just say Steadify is my header, it'll give me a header of Steadify, as you can see right here. And it's going to be in bold since it's a header. Now, if we want to do a smaller header, we can do H2 tag, which gives you a smaller header. So, and we run that, we're going to get a smaller header of Steadify. And if I want an even smaller header, I can do H3 tag. Just do that. And we're going to use Steadify, which is again going to be even smaller. H4 tag. And it's going to be even smaller. An H5 tag we can use. And the closing tag always is a slash in HTML. But not for, like, some tags don't have a closing tag, and we'll get into that in the next video. And that's going to be even smaller. And the smallest header available is H6 tag. Alright, so we have some headers here. Pretty basic HTML. Alright, so moving on from the header tags, we can create buttons in HTML. So the way to create a button, you first want to put a link in. When we put a link in, we're going to do an A tag. HERF signifies there's a link coming. And then you're going to do an equal sign. And you want to put your link in some quotes. So I'm going to use the basic google.com link. And I'm going to paste that. And the google.com link. And after we put our link in, we can put our button in, the actual button. So to put the button in, we're going to do a button. And now we're going to do another button, this time in uppercase. And then a closing tag. And now, between the uppercase button tags, we can put in the name for the button. So I just need Google, so we don't really need. And there we go, we have a link to Google. And if you click on this link, it will take you to Google. It will take you to this search engine page. So that's how we create buttons. Now, we can do all of these things. We can create button after button, tag after tag. We still need some paragraphs. So the P tag is used for paragraphs, and the P tag is one of the tags that has a closing tag, which is a majority of the tags you'll encounter in HTML as we move on to more advanced stuff, especially. So and if you do that, still running. So basically what the paragraph tag will do, it'll give you a paragraph underneath the headers. If I just run this, yeah, so you'll get HTML is good. But notice how this is linked, and we want to remove the link. So the way we do that is we just put it before. That's a simple fix. And that's going to put it before that as well. Alright, so we know how to handle buttons. We know how to handle paragraphs. So in order to customize all this, you're going to need CSS. You know, we can't really center things here. We can't move things around. So if we just continue HTML, we're just going to have a line of items. So we just don't want random buttons here. We don't want just random things that say Google. We don't. So the way that works is we're going to use some CSS. So over here, you're going to have style.css. No matter whatever browser you're using, you're going to have a style.css somewhere. So here we have style.css, CSS file, and CSS is already linked with the HTML file. So if you want to know how to link an HTML and CSS file, here's how you do it. So you use a link, the href signifies there's a link or a file. You do the CSS file name, and the rel is going to be style sheet, and then you can do the type thing text/CSS. That's one way of linking, or you don't need to include the type thing. If you're in Visual Studio Code, like when I'm in VSC, I don't include the last part. So it all depends on your IDE. So I'm going to move on to CSS. Now, starting off with CSS is linked to the HTML file. So we can just take anything from the HTML file and do it in the CSS thing. So let's say we want to customize this H1 tag right here, the largest header. And I can do this by doing an H1. And then I'll have curly braces, which signifies the beginning of the code and the end of the code. So let's say we want to make it red. I can change the color to red. Now, if you're not on Replit or VSC, I know VSC, the Visual Studio Code, includes, like, you can just type red, blue, green in English. But if you're in an IDE where you can't use English, you have to use hexadecimal, you can just use an hexadecimal converter. And, you know, there's one on Google. So let's say we want a color like this, like our red. So you want something right here. The hexadecimal converter is right here. So we can just copy and paste this into our HTML code. And this is completely allowed. We're not expected to memorize the hexadecimal conversion. So obviously, or you can memorize things like white and black. So black you should remember as 6 zeros. So, and white can be also memorized as 6 Fs. So really, you can just open a hexadecimal color picker on Google. So going back to CSS, color, we want a red color, so we can just run this, and bam, we have our header is red. So let's say we want to customize the H2 tag and do the same thing. Let's say the color wants to be blue. So that's going to be blue. And the H3 tag, let's say the H3 tag wants to be different. We want that to be a different color, so and that can be orange. I'm going to run it. And it's orange. Now, if we want to customize the H4 tag, same thing. Let's make it brown. And we can do this for every single type of thing that we have. And I'm just going to do it every single type so you can see how useful CSS is. Because CSS is going to be a lot of your work. So, like, sometimes when you're developing websites, CSS might be like the entire thing that you're doing sometimes. So it's extremely important that you, well, and I think, yeah, it's still running. All right. Completely fine. So you can honestly, and there we go, the color's changed. And the last thing, we want to customize the h6 tag in our HTML file. We can just do that using the h6 color. And let's say I want the color to be chocolate. And lastly, we can just use the p tag and customize that. Let's make it blue again. Make sure you always use a colon in CSS. So you get it. And we can also customize the button. If we wanted to. So button. Red. The button, the text inside the button would be a red. So let's say you want to change up the text a little bit. So here I can just do a text align. Or no. Alright. So whenever you use the text align features, do it before the color, since otherwise you're going to have some problems. So text align, and let's say we want to center. So the text align is erroring because we have the color here, which is why you should always consider doing the text align part. So we can also just open a new h1 tag, do here, and we can do a text align and center, and that center aligns it without changing the code. And if I can just do that, boom, that's how you fix it. So that's a big mistake people make. Do not make that mistake. Just start new tag. So I can do the same thing for the h2. Let's say text align wants to be, let's say we want to make it right, and do a left. Yeah, let's do a right. So, and it'll go all the way to the right. And h3 can go, we can really choose what we want with the h3. So let's center align it again. So if I center align this, I'm going to get the same thing. You get what I mean. So we can do this for every single one and customize this document using what we've written in our HTML code. So hopefully this video helped. Thank you everyone for watching the video. And yeah, that's the basics of HTML and CSS part 1.